I was 13 when my parents told me to pack a bag. And the strange part wasn't the shouting or the anger, because there wasn't any. It was the calmness. The way my mother folded my clothes like I was going on a short trip, the way my father avoided my eyes as if I were already gone. They said I was too difficult, that the house felt lighter without my questions, my silence, my existence taking up space. My older brother was the pride of the family, my younger sister the favorite, and I was the inconvenience they quietly decided they could live without. That night it rained, and I remember standing outside with a small bag in my hand, waiting for one of them to call me back, to say it was a lesson or a mistake. No one did. My father simply said, "Maybe this will teach you something," before the door closed. It did teach me something, but not what they expected. It taught me that if I ever built a life, I would build it without them, and one day they would understand exactly what they had thrown away. The first time I saw them again, 15 years had already rewritten every weakness they thought I had. They were standing at my door, smaller than I remembered, older in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with regret. My mother's hands trembled when I opened the gate, and my father couldn't meet my eyes this time either. But now it wasn't indifference. It was shame. For a second, none of us spoke. I simply stood there, calm, composed, wearing the life they once said I would never have. The house behind me wasn't rented. The car in the driveway wasn't borrowed. The name on the company registered at that address. My company was mine alone. We didn't know where else to go. My mother finally whispered. Their house had been sold months ago. My brother's guaranteed career had collapsed under debt. My sister had moved abroad and stopped answering their calls. The perfect family picture they chose over me had quietly fallen apart. My father cleared his throat, forcing steadiness into his voice. "We made mistakes," he said, like it was a small accounting error, like I had been a misplaced bill instead of a child left in the rain. I didn't interrupt. I didn't raise my voice. I had learned long ago that power doesn't shout. It observes. They explained how medical bills had piled up, how loans had defaulted, how friends disappeared when the money did. Each sentence sounded rehearsed, but the panic beneath it was real. They needed help, not forgiveness. Help. Financial help, stability, shelter, the very things they once decided I didn't deserve. I listened quietly, remembering the bus stop, the wet shoes, the silence that swallowed me whole at 13. "You said this would teach me something," I finally replied, my voice steady. My father flinched. It did. The air between us shifted. They had expected anger, maybe tears, maybe a desperate child still hoping for approval. Instead, they found someone they didn't recognize. I explained calmly that I had put myself through school, worked 3 jobs at one point, slept in shared rooms, taken risks no one believed I could handle. I built a business from nothing but stubbornness and sleepless nights. Every contract signed, every investment made, every win earned was a brick in a foundation they never thought I could lay. "We're proud of you," my mother said quickly, as if pride were currency she could now offer. I didn't smile. Pride wasn't something you claim 15 years late. My father stepped forward slightly. "We're still your parents." The words hung there, heavy and hollow. Biology was their strongest argument, but responsibility had an expiration date they chose long ago. I walked to the door and opened it wider, not as an invitation, but as clarity. "I won't let you struggle," I said evenly. Relief flooded their faces too quickly. They thought this was the moment the child they abandoned came running back. They had no idea this was the moment the balance of power became permanent. "But you won't live here," I continued. Their expressions cracked. "And you won't control anything in my life. I will arrange a place for you. I will cover basic expenses. That's all." My father's jaw tightened. This wasn't the emotional reunion he imagined. This wasn't submission. It was structure. It was boundaries. My mother tried a different tactic. We just want our family back. I held her gaze for the first time. Family doesn't close doors on children. Silence followed. Thick, uncomfortable. True. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even angry anymore. That was the part that unsettled them most. Anger can be negotiated. Calm cannot. I handed them a card with my assistant's number and told them arrangements would be made by the end of the week. My father looked at the house one more time, as if trying to measure what it would have been like if they had never pushed me out. "You've changed," he muttered. I nodded slightly. "Yes," I said. I had to, and as they slowly walked back toward the gate, smaller than they had ever seemed in my memory, I realized something powerful. When they abandoned me, they thought they were discarding a problem. They never imagined they were creating the only person who would ever have the power to decide their future. After they left that day, I stood in the quiet of my house and felt something I hadn't expected: peace. Not victory, not revenge, just clarity. For years, I had imagined this moment differently. I thought I would want apologies that cracked their voices, explanations that finally made sense, maybe even tears that proved they understood the damage. But when it actually happened, I realized I didn't need any of it. Closure isn't something other people hand you. It's something you build for yourself, brick by brick, the same way I built my life after they closed that door on a 13-year-old kid standing in the rain. I kept my word. I arranged a small apartment for them. I made sure their basic expenses were covered. Nothing extravagant, nothing humiliating, just enough. It wasn't love that motivated me. It was discipline. I refused to become the kind of person pain could twist into cruelty. But I also refused to reopen doors that had once been slammed in my face. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. They tried, at first, to call often. My mother left long messages about memories I barely remembered. My father spoke in short, careful sentences, as if afraid one wrong word would end everything again. I listened politely. I responded calmly. But I never invited them back into my world. They weren't part of my decisions. They weren't part of my celebrations. When I succeeded, I celebrated with the people who stood beside me when I had nothing. When I struggled, I leaned on the strength I had built alone. One evening, my father said quietly, "We thought you wouldn't survive without us." I let the silence stretch before answering. "I didn't survive because of you," I said. "I survived despite you." It wasn't said with anger. It was simply the truth. And the truth doesn't need to shout. Over time, something shifted. They stopped asking to move in. They stopped hinting at starting over. I think they finally understood that access to me was a privilege, not a right. The child they abandoned was gone. In his place stood someone steady, someone who had learned that love without respect is just control, wearing a softer mask. 15 years ago, they closed a door and believed my story would end there. They never imagined it was the first chapter of my independence. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to beg. I needed distance, discipline, and the courage to choose myself.